Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Today we're going to be taking a look at degenne, and this Pokemon went from 0 to hero from last season to this season, but not for the best reasons. It got access to the very disgustingly broken move of Parabolic Charge this season. And Parabolic Charge, in case you've been living under a rock, because I sure have, getting out a degenne video 3 weeks in the season, who am I? Nevertheless, this move allows you to boost your defense stat, a move archetype that we have not yet seen at this caliber for very good reason. We're going to be taking a look at game number 1 as degenne leads into a Runerigus, and Runerigus is going to stay into the Gligar safe switch and take an Aerial Ace, then switch into a Blastoise. I'm going to accidentally play into the losing CMP tie versus this Blastoise, and from here I should have to shield this move. I don't believe in my Gligar's ability to live that Hydro Cannon, so I am going to put up a shield and fire off the dig in retaliation. They are going to no-shield my dig, and in comparison that did pretty pitiful damage. I'm going to fire off an Aerial Ace and force a shield back or win switch advantage up against this Blastoise. Blastoise, of course, going to put up the shield, and now they're going to fire back with the Hydro Cannon. But from here, I should be able to bring in degenne and get the Thundershock farm down. I get one turn bring in. Is that going to matter? Not really. But I am going to no-shield this Hydro Cannon, as I know that degenne does not have a whole lot of play onto their lead, which was Runerigus. Runerigus does not come back in, and instead we do see the Ferrothorn, which completely walls the moveset of degenne as well. So we are not having a very good time in game number 1. We're going to bring in Diggersby, looking to land a Fire Punch onto the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn not having any of that nonsense, and I'm going to have to put up a shield up against this Ferrothorn move because it's a Power Whip, and it'll hit, of course, harder than anything the Runerigus can throw. Runerigus is going to fire off what should be a Rock Tomb. That doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but any damage from this point is impactful chip damage for my opponent to potentially get me into Power Whip range. I am going to fire off a Scorching Sands, really trying to get rid of this Pokemon, and for some reason I've got to bring in the degenne now because this is its best matchup. Embarrassingly so. I'm going to actually allow myself to get taken out there, as I want to ideally get as much farm as possible with Diggersby, but I realize that's not going to be very possible. I am going to now get the Fire Punch KO onto the Runerigus, but in comes the Ferrothorn, and it's got a move loaded with my Diggersby's name on it. Diggersby just does not have enough in the tank to get rid of this Ferrothorn, so unfortunately a couple more Bullet Seeds will do us in. GG's to this trainer. Getting right on into game number 2, degenne leads into Superior. And this is teaching me that people are not nearly as weak to degenne as they were in the first week of the season. I did get a couple games recorded with this team, but not nearly enough to make a video, so unfortunately that video did not come to be until now. I'm going to safe switch into my Gligar, looking to catch the Frenzy Plant, but that Frenzy Plant does like 55% to my Gligar, and I realized that was a horrible idea. I'm going to bring in the Gligar regardless, trying to get an Aerial Ace. That's really my only way to get rid of that Superior anyway. They bring in their Typhlosion for the 2 Incinerate farm down. I'm bringing in my degenne, and I think I got one turn bring in there, so I am going to go for an extra, and it looks like I got a full sneak, so definitely did not want to throw the Parabolic Charge where I would have potentially lost CMP. I knew 100% that was going to be a Thunder Punch bait, but I decided to go for the shield anyway, because if I didn't, I would have potentially just died to a Blast Burn. They are going to get taken out by the Parabolic Charge on their Typhlosion as they reach for that Blast Burn, and they were not quite yet able to get it. They're going to fire off a Frenzy Plant onto degenne. I really thought I was going to be able to live that move. That is so bad for me that I didn't. And Superior staying in. Of course, this is not a bad matchup for the Superior whatsoever. They're going to fire off a Frenzy Plant, and now they attempt to catch my Fire Punch onto their own degenne, but they are going to have a Rude Awakening as we are not firing off the Fire Punch. We're going for the Scorching Sands, and one Scorching Sands I knew would not be enough to KO the degenne, so what I had to do was go for the Fire Punch before they made the Play Rough, so that I wouldn't be an easy KO for the incoming Superior when they brought that back in. Superior is going to fire off a Frenzy Plant, but our Diggersby is healthy enough and bulky enough to live that Frenzy Plant with little problem. I'm firing off the Fire Punch, not quite going to be enough to KO quite yet, but one further quick attack will do it. GG's to this trainer. Why have one degen when you can have two? It's the degenne mirror, and I am going to play this a little bit differently than standard. I have two better responses, so I'm going to bank the parabolic charge for later, bring in my Gligar, and they are going to retaliate with a degenne move of their own. This is of course going to likely be the Play Rough, which does do a sizable amount onto my Gligar. They're going to bring in G-Sola. Corsola here is pretty easily going to be able to get this farm down, to be honest with you. I'm going to build up to the dig and send the dig. I am fortunately able to make it, but the problem here is that Corsola is going to be able to make a move. But you know what isn't a problem for Corsola energy? Diggersby. We slap our Diggersby onto the G-Sola and we are absolutely in a good spot. They are going to fire off some energy here, and so far this trainer is very ABA weak to Diggersby, so I'm assuming they have some form of an answer to Diggersby in the back somewhere. Corsola just firing off move after move, as they really can't afford to give up switch advantage, as I would imagine they have one Diggersby check on their team, and they are going to have to align it onto the Diggersby. But that means that Diggersby can take full advantage of the situation. They bring in the Cradily, they pivot in their only answer, but unfortunately for me, this is not the best situation ever, because degenne does not have a very good matchup into Cradily, believe it or not. We are going to fire off the Fire Punch on the second here. Unfortunately, it does not get the debuff that we need. And we are going to see them be able to make a move. They play into the winning CMP tie, so very well played by this trainer there. They go for the Grass Knot. I was very hesitant to press my shield button there for very good reason. Cradily players are all degenerates that just love to click on the Rock Tomb as soon as they get it, but this trainer seems to be a little different. They are going to fire off yet another move here, and of course this is always going to be where we shield. I play into the losing CMP tie, unfortunately, and I'm going for an undercharge on my Fire Punch. Fire Punch will leave the Cradily with just about 1 HP. They're going to bring back in their own degenne, but fortunately for me, I should be able to grab a shield from this degenne, live this Play Rough, and 3 Thunder Shocks don't KO. That next one will, but the important thing is that we made that Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands onto the degenne will force a shield from them, and now I have an energy lead. I'm clicking on my Play Rough button, and the rest of their team is in farm down range. They cannot make a move on either of their other 2 Pokemon, and they're both on 1 HP. So that means our degenne is going to be able to farm down the rest of their team, or rather we would have been if they didn't top left. GG's. A full video of me running a degen Pokemon and my opponent decides to challenge that as they lead their Wigglytuff into my degenne. I am going to intentionally throw my Parabolic Charge on 5 here, even though that is suboptimal timing. There is a reason for that, and that is that Charm is a very hard hitting fast move, but if we throw on 5, their 4th Charm does not register until after we apply the Parabolic Charge boost. So that's the rationale for that. I throw on 5 straight away again, and they decide to catch it onto a Marowak, so I safe switch into my Gligar, or rather counter switch into my Gligar, and they are going to fire off a Rock Slide. The Rock Slide does not do very much of any damage, and I'm going to continue to farm. They didn't build up. That was not nearly enough. They're one short of another Rock Slide, so they just decide to settle for the Bone Club. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can and fire off an Aerial Ace to pick up the knockout onto the Marowak. This so far has been a very fast move tap team. They are going to bring back in the Wigglytuff, and I'm trying to get rid of this Pokemon as nobody really likes Wigglytuff. We are going to bring back in the degenne. They decide to throw a move there, and I think they could have actually charmed me down. This is the point of me saying that degenne's defense stat is really fraudulent. We are now probably looking to bring back in the Diggersby here, as we need to preserve the low health Gligar for the ability to reset a potential Icy Wind debuff later. They are going to switch into their 3rd, which is a Galarian Moltres, but Galarian Moltres is going to get heavily outpaced in this matchup. I feel as if they are going to throw their moves as soon as they get them. They actually decide to play into the CMP tie, which of course they do win. I have to shield everything here, as these moves are going to be a lot more impactful. And also, the Fly would put me in Sucker Punch farm down range. I have 2 shields, may as well use them. They're going to continue to farm, and I catch onto the Gligar, their Fly. This is an absolutely game-winning play, because now, no matter what they decide to do here, I can just go for the Fire Punch. But unfortunately, I play into the losing CMP tie, and now this is going to get tough. I'm debuffed here. I need a perfect undercharge if I'm going to get away with this game. I go for a great. Is that going to be enough? Yes, the Wigglytuff not able to land the charm. We get the quick attack down. Back in comes the Moltres. We get the back-to-back fire punches, and this has to KO. We are debuffed on this Diggersby. Is the debuff fire punch going to be enough to knock out the Moltres? They are very close to a move. Fire punch onto the Moltres, picks up the KO. GG's to this trainer. In the next match, it's going to be degenne leading into Clodsire. This Pokemon cannot catch a break on lead. Jeez, I am going to immediately switch into my Gligar, which is a pretty hard check to the Clodsire. I'm going to fire off an Aerial Ace onto their incoming Feraligatr, and Gligar should actually be able to win 2s here because they gave us a pretty sizable energy lead. They are going to fire off the Hydro Cannon, but like I said, my intention here is fully to play out the 2-shield scenario because I cannot afford to have my degenne aligned onto that Clodsire for even a second longer in this match. They are going to fire off yet another Hydro Cannon here. I'm double shielding. Of course I'm double shielding. And now we need to make one further Aerial Ace onto the Feraligatr, and we make it one turn before they make their Hydro Cannon. That is what happens when they are as slow on the switch as they were. And now, back in comes the Clodsire. Clodsire looking to land some energy onto our Gligar, but is going to take a hefty amount of damage to do so. They are going to take the dig, and they needed to get rid of this Gligar earlier because that damage landing is very impactful. But now that we have switch advantage, it's going to be an uphill battle for our opponent regardless. We bring in the Diggersby, they've got a Bandabuzz in the back. We bring in our degenne, and I think our opponent's going to be joining us and calling it that for the rest of the season. Getting into the next game, degenne leading into Cradily. I think I'm going to fast move check this time around, and I do. I see its Acid immediately switch into my Gligar. Look to land the Aerial Ace before they can debuff me with a Rock Tomb. We are going to see, are they going to shield? Yes, they are going to shield up the Cradily, which makes me believe that they may want to play this matchup out or not have a very strong counter to my Gligar and back. I am not the most correct there, as they are going to bring in a non-Shadow Dusknoir, and these Astonishes and Shadow Punches are going to hit pretty hard onto the Shadow Gligar. Gligar, pretty bulky, all things considered, so we are able to live that move no problem. And I'm baiting with an Aerial Ace. The Dusknoir decides to no shield, and that is very bad for me. I'm bringing in my Diggersby here, and I'm looking to force them to throw the Dynamic Punch to get any meaningful damage onto the Diggersby, and indeed they do. I'm looking to fire off my Scorching Sands here on 4, and there's not really a whole lot of rationale for throwing this on 4. Maybe they decide to no shield it, but unfortunately they were going to live that anyway, and they're going to get this Dynamic Punch off onto my Diggersby, and it's going to hit for some pretty heavy damage. Fortunately, it wasn't a Shadow Dusknoir, but we are going to be able to take advantage and get a very nice farm down for ourselves. They show third, and it is going to be a Mandibuzz. I have never seen how little damage a Fire Punch does onto a Mandibuzz with no chip, and that did like 10%. Mandibuzz, what is wrong with you? I banked 2 moves for later, switch in my Gligar, and exactly what I was hoping would happen, happened. They switch into their Cradily, and Cradily is not going to want to be here as opposed to on my degenne. I'm bringing in my Diggersby, firing off the Scorching Sands immediately as I need damage on this Pokemon if I intend on winning this game. We get the attack drop, and I am going to fire off the Fire Punch. I don't think they intended on me doing that because they had the move there. They could have won the CMP tie. They fire off the move now instead, as Cradily is devastatingly low. But that looks like a very nice farm down range for my degenne. In comes the degenne, and we are going to RPS them as it lands onto their Mandibuzz, and there is not a single move Mandibuzz can throw that our degenne is going to be afraid of. They do get access to Shadow Ball, but nobody runs that in reality. And yeah, Mandibuzz is just kind of cooked here. They're going to keep throwing moves. I guess they just don't have anything better to do with their time, and maybe they haven't located where the top left button is. It's generally in the top left of the screen. But anyway, they're going to continue firing off moves at the degenne. Foul play not doing a whole lot of damage there. We're going to double up, and now we can click on the play rough for the Cradily just in case Parabolic Charge was not enough to KO, but I think from this range it was. Nevertheless, oh my god, it had 1 HP, never mind, GG's. This is exactly the karma I deserve in this match, as I am now getting RPS, leading the degenne into a Stunfisk, and I'm going to build up 4 Thundershocks and then safe switch into my Gligar. Fortunately for me, I am able to catch a Mud Bomb as my opponent did not react quickly enough, and that is so good for us. They are going to bank a move for later, then switch into a Dusclops, but Dusclops we have plays to make here. I think I throw my move there on alignment, so maybe not if I keep doing stuff like that. But Dusclops, of course, has access to the double super effective Ice Punch. We are forced to commit a shield here. They actually bait with the Shadow Punch. That is so lame. And now I have to shield up a potential Ice Punch because the Shadow Punch allows them, if you throw a Shadow Punch immediately as the first move, you have enough residual to make an Ice Punch. And honestly, when is the Gligar ever no-shielding that move? That was a good play by the opponent. I'm going to fire off the Aerial Ace here, and Aerial Ace onto the Dusclops is going to grab a shield. Now I can bring in the degenne, and with a Parabolic Charge banked, I might be able to have a little more play in this game than I once anticipated. For some reason, they decide to bring in their Scizor when they had possibly the hardest counter to degenne in the meta. Not entirely sure why they did this, but I'm going to go for the double Parabolic Charge, and now it's going to be very hard for them to remove this Pokemon from the field. They can bring back in the Stunfisk, that's fine, because I should be able to make a Play Rough as I'm double boosted. This Mud Bomb is a very low base power move, and I'm wrong. I get KO'd by it. They're going to continue to farm, bringing in the Gligar. Gligar looking to make the dig and is successful in making the dig. They are going to shield up. And I'm just going to stay in with Gligar here because there's not a whole lot that they can do to the Gligar. I'm actually outside of a range where they can KO me with a Discharge, and they're going to bring in their Dusclops. I'm looking to KO this Dusclops immediately because I don't want it making a move onto either of my two remaining Pokemon and giving my opponent a win con. They are going to overfarm and fire off a move at the Gligar, not wanting me to make another dig. But the opponent is not going to be very happy when they see the Diggersby come in, and that's an immediate top left. GG's. Getting into the next game, and this guy must be all caught up on his Shmeaty videos as he leads Hawlucha into our degenne. Degenne going to be able to fire off the Parabolic Charge immediately on 5 here, and Hawlucha can never afford to no-shield this move. They are going to shield up and look to overfarm, firing off a Flying Press just before we make our next Parabolic Charge. I think Hawlucha would actually win this CMP tie. And yeah, I looked it up, it definitely does win the CMP tie by a pretty decent margin. We are going to fire off Parabolic Charge number 2, and they're going to fire off another Flying Press. I'm just going to go ahead and let this go, and look to get a head-on energy on one of my back 2 Pokemon. Of course, what's going to come in is probably not going to be the Diggersby. They're going to see the Gligar, and look to actually fire off a Flying Press onto the Gligar here. That's not a bad play. They're actually going to go for the Aerial Ace. It does a sizable amount of damage, all things considered. They've got that Talonflame in the back. This is not looking too good for us. ABA flying, and we're looking to go for the double Aerial Ace here, as the double Aerial Ace does a lot of damage onto the Talonflame. Going to put them into the red health, and now I'm bringing in the Diggersby here. I don't anticipate that they're going to go for the Brave Bird here, so I am going to no-shield. And they hit me with the Brave Bird. That is unfortunate, but that does mean I'm able to get the 2 Quick Attack farm down. They're bringing back in the Hawlucha. I'm overfarming as much as I can, and now I'm looking to go for the Fire Punch to pick up the knockout, and it does get the knockout. In the back, they've got a Greninja, and I'm firing off this Scorching Sands immediately. This is going to be very close in the end game here, as Greninja is 2 moves off the double up, and they have the double up here. They have double Night Slash. This is it. It's a true 50-50 if they overfarm or not. I click on my Gligar button about 72 times, and I get an extra Quick Attack, which I really didn't want. They go for the Night Slash. It gets the boost. They fully undercharge it, but that's not going to be enough. That doesn't give them enough farm. Because of the boost, it actually allows them to KO with the Water Shuriken, and Diggersby will pick up a very fraudulent win with that Fire Punch. GG's to this trainer. Getting into the final game of the video, once again, it's going to be Stunfisk leading into degenne. They anticipate me throwing the 5 Thunder Shocks and attempting a catch, so unfortunately they hold on to their energy. Very good patience by them, and they are going to counter switch my Gligar safe switch with a Talonflame. However, as we've seen, Gligar can inflict some pretty devastating damage onto Talonflame. They are going to fire off a Fly here, and I'm looking to just play out the zero shield scenario here, and no shield a Fly. Fly doesn't KO, and now I've got this Aerial Ace that does quite a bit of damage onto them. I bring in my degenne, and I'm able to get the farm down. In comes their Stunfisk, and Stunfisk is going to be able to make a move, but decides not to throw it. And now I can bring in my Diggersby. They throw a move at our Diggersby accidentally. I don't think they would intend on throwing this, because as you're going to see, that does next to no damage. In the back, they have a Gastrodon, and Gastrodon is going to be quite the problem here. Now, the Body Slam here probably does relative, if not more damage than the Mud Bombs from the Stunfisk, so I am going to fire off a Fire Punch bait and shield up these Body Slams. This endgame is so cursed, but I'm going to shield up yet another Body Slam, and now I'm going to throw 4 more and go for the Scorching Sands. Now they are 1 Mud Slap off of their next potential Body Slam here, and it's up to me if I decide to catch it or not. I throw 1 quick attack and go for the Scorching Sands. I think they're going to undertap, so you're going to see me bring in the degenne. They don't undertap, but they decide to go for a Body Slam onto the degenne anyway. That actually works for me just fine, because I can absorb that no problem and force him to throw Stunfisk energy as well. So this actually isn't as bad of a situation as you might think. We're bringing in the Diggersby here, but Diggersby has its work cut out for it, as we're going to get hit with a Mud Bomb and get devastatingly low here. We have to overfarm as much as humanly possible. The Thundershocks are not threatening right now. We're going for the Scorching Sands at the last possible second. It now all comes down to this. Are we in 1 Mud Slap range? We are not. 2 quick attacks and the Fire Punch. Is it enough to KO? Fire Punch onto the Gastrodon will pick up the KO. Get that RPS nonsense off our screen. GG's. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks so much for watching. Why do I believe Parabolic Charge to be so problematic? Well, very simple answer for you guys. You remember Drapion last season, how they deemed Crunch to be too broken and oppressive, so they had to nerf the debuff percentage from 30 to 20 this season? Well, Parabolic Charge has the same energy cost and damage as Crunch, with a 100% chance to boost your own defense. This is a problem because moves that boost your defense are intentionally reined in by the fact like Drain Punch is a terrible move otherwise. Skull Bash is very expensive and you oftentimes don't get to that many of them. They're reined in by the fact that there are caveats to the fact that you are boosting your own defense. An attack debuff you can switch out of, but a defense boost you have to get rid of it. You have to remove that Pokemon from the field in order for that defense boost to go away, or it's going to stay there. Anyway, me yapping aside, I hope you guys found enjoyment in today's video. I've been Shmeaty. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.